My name is Claire, I'm 36 years old, and I work as an accountant at an organic food company in Minnesota. I live alone in a cozy two-bedroom apartment, just enough space for me and the thoughts I've never dared to say out loud. This year, I started planning for Christmas all the way back in early October. Don't get me wrong, I'm not obsessed with scented candles, shiny ribbons, or holiday playlists. I just wanted everything to be perfect. For my mom, for my younger brother Eric, his wife Danielle, and their twin kids, Ava and Mason. I even bought a little gift for their dog, a red sweater with the words Santa's favorite on it. Truth is, I've never forgotten a single present in the past 10 years. From the toy Ava casually mentioned back in June, to the science book Mason longed for when he spotted it at the bookstore. Everything was in my phone. Notes, written down line by line, obsessively detailed. By the first week of December, I had everything ready. I wrapped each gift in snowman print paper, tied golden ribbons for Ava and blue ones for Mason, and attached tiny handwritten cards. I even prepared a few extra items in case Eric's family invited someone unexpectedly. Handmade cookies, a bottle of lavender-scented perfume, and a couple of untagged toys. I had pinned so much hope on this Christmas, as if it was my last chance to believe in hope at all. I pictured the evening of December 24th, the whole family gathered in my parents' living room, twinkling lights on a 7-foot tree. Ava and Mason giggling as they tore through wrapping paper, my mom tearing up at the silk scarf I carefully picked from a little store downtown, and Eric looking at me and nodding. Just one nod to let me know he understood. But I was wrong. Wrong to think I could keep playing the quiet older sister, the thoughtful daughter, the agreeable woman who always smiled, even when I wanted to scream inside, I'm part of this family too. I'm not invisible. I had everything prepared, but nothing could have prepared me for the moment I'd later remember as a slap to the face of my dignity. This Christmas I wasn't welcome, and it all started with a brief message from my mom at 7:18 a.m. on December 23rd. Claire, this year Eric's family wants to celebrate privately. Please don't come. Sorry for the late notice. Late notice? I read that message over and over until the screen light felt like it was burning my eyes. I thought it was a joke. I even scoffed. Set my phone down, telling myself Mom must have been tired or upset over something. But then I called. She didn't answer. 3 times. Then Eric texted, cold and blunt. You don't need to come. There's no place here for someone who doesn't know their role. My role? I was frozen, staring at the pile of gifts perfectly arranged beneath my tree. Each box, each carefully chosen ribbon, now looking like proof of something cruel. I had given my heart to a place that never had room for it. The gifts are still in my trunk. I don't know yet if I should return them to the store or donate them. But one thing I do know, this holiday season is no longer about family gatherings. It's about realizing I've been clinging to a circle that quietly closed without me. I spent nearly an hour debating whether to drive to my parents' house in Bloomington. My mom's text clearly told me not to come, but I still wanted to believe. Maybe it was all a misunderstanding, that when they saw me, saw the gifts, saw the smile I'd held onto all these months, things would change. On the drive over, I turned on the radio to drown out the storm in my head. Outside, snow began to fall, soft flakes silently covering the windshield like a gentle reminder that winter had truly arrived. And it didn't bring the warmth I once hoped for. When I pulled up to my parents' light gray house, everything looked the same as years past. Christmas lights lining the roof, a grand tree glowing in the window. But something felt off. No laughter. No Ava or Mason running out to greet me. I took a deep breath, opened the trunk, lifted the gift bags, and walked toward the door. My hand trembled, maybe from the cold, maybe from something deeper. I rang the doorbell, once, twice. The door cracked open. My mom stood there in a deep red sweater, her expression unlike any I'd seen before. Claire, she said softly, I told you not to come this year. I froze. Mom, I brought everything. I Eric's voice cut through from behind her. Just say it, Mom. She's not welcome. We don't need failures here. I stood still. His eyes met mine, and they weren't the eyes of the brother who once cried and begged me to cover his first-year tuition. Now they were smug, dismissive. I forced a smile. A failure? Just because I didn't send money the past 3 months? Eric crossed his arms behind Mom. 3 months? Claire, you haven't helped us at all this year. The kids didn't even have new clothes for school. And you? You bought a new car, went on trips, living like a queen. That car's on a payment plan, and I traveled with my savings. As for the kids, they're your kids, Eric, not mine. I tried to keep my voice calm, but my throat tightened. Mom said nothing. She just looked down at the doorstep. I turned to her, hoping for a flicker of compassion, some sign I hadn't been completely discarded. I came here with gifts for everyone. All I wanted was a warm evening like every year. Did I really do something wrong? Eric scoffed. You want to know what you did wrong? You're the only one in this family with stable income, acting like nobody else matters. Stop pretending. You just like being the selfless one. Well, not this year. We're done. I bit my lip, gripping the gift bag handles so tight it hurt. I suddenly felt like I was standing on trial, with no right to speak. Fine, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. If that's what you think, I won't bother you again. I turned away, but as I stepped off the first porch stair, Eric added with sneering sarcasm, Merry Christmas, Claire. Don't forget your gifts. No one wants them. I didn't look back. I wouldn't let them see my eyes brimming. I wouldn't let them see my shaking hands. I just walked quickly back to my car, opened the door, set the bags on the passenger seat, and sank into the driver's seat. My heart was pounding. Not from the cold, but from the reality I never thought I'd face. Being shut out from the home I grew up in. I didn't start the engine. The yard lights still glowed, casting long shadows across the thickening snow. All I could hear was my heartbeat, and the wind hissing through the window seals. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I had no tears left to waste on a rejection so final. I placed my hands on the steering wheel and whispered, just one thing. So this is how my Christmas begins. I once believed helping family was a given, especially for Eric, my younger brother by 4 years, the one I used to cradle and comfort after school bullies left him in tears. But sitting in my car, headlights on the house that had just closed its door on me, I suddenly understood. Maybe I wasn't helping. Maybe I was being used. And I was the one who let it go on for far too long. I remembered all the times Eric called me in the middle of the night, saying Ava urgently needed money for summer camp, or Mason didn't have a proper winter coat. I transferred the money right away, no questions asked. I told myself I did it out of love for the kids, not obligation, not guilt. But now, after he hurled the word failure at me, I saw it clearly. In their eyes, I was no longer the sister who loved her family unconditionally. I was just a walking wallet. I had paid over $3,000, 0 cents in school tuition for Ava in her first 2 years. I once covered their utilities when they were 3 months behind on rent. And the $12.50 mortgage payment last year, the one I had to borrow from my retirement savings to stop the bank from foreclosing? No one ever mentioned that again. No thank you, no follow-up. I used to believe that if I gave enough, they'd understand I did it out of love. But the more I gave, the more it felt like an obligation in their eyes. Then, a message popped up on my phone. It was from Danielle, Eric's wife. Claire, I'm sorry. I don't agree with how Eric treated you. I just didn't have the courage to speak up today. I stared at the text. Danielle had never been particularly close to me, but she was always kind and gentle. When I first met her, I gave her a leather journal with her name engraved on it, knowing she loved writing. And now, she was the only one who apologized. Even though she wasn't the one who caused this. I didn't reply right away. I set the phone on the passenger seat and turned the car around. I needed to go home, to think. On the drive back, My mind went through every year I quietly carried the weight for Eric. One small expense at a time, then larger ones, until the numbers stopped being countable. I clearly remembered the time Eric called me, his voice shaking with fear after losing his job. I immediately sent them $1,200, 0 cents, and told him, "It's okay, just get back on your feet. I'll take care of the kids for a while." That sentence turned out to be the start of an imbalanced relationship. I got back to my apartment around 10 p.m. The quiet made all the earlier chaos feel distant. I turned on the light, set the gift bags on the dining table, and dropped into a chair like someone returning from an unspoken war. I opened my laptop and pulled up my personal finance tracker, a habit I'd never broken. I never forgot to log an expense, even $10, 0 cents, for a small toy. I scrolled to the notes. Helped Eric Ava's tuition. Helped Eric card payments. Helped Eric car repairs so Danielle could get to work. Total? Over $32,000, 0 cents, in the past 5 years. I sat in silence. I had never asked for anything back, never calculated interest. I thought it was what a big sister should do. But now, after receiving nothing but disregard and coldness, I finally understood. Family love can't be one-sided. They had gotten so used to me carrying the burden that they assumed I always would. When I stopped, I suddenly became the failure. I shut the laptop, reopened Danielle's message, typed a short reply. "Thanks for reaching out. I'm not mad. But from now on, everything will be different." I didn't know what was waiting for me next, but one thing was clear. I wouldn't let anyone treat my kindness like a duty, ever again. I spent the entire Christmas Eve in silence. No children laughing, no mugs of hot cocoa, no knitted scarf from my mom like she made every year out of old habit. Just me, a self-decorated tree in the living room corner, and the gift bag still sitting on the table. Untouched. Unopened. I didn't cry. Maybe because my last tear had already fallen in the car right outside their house. That moment when Eric looked at me with such contempt and called me a failure, it was an invisible slap that jolted me awake from the dream I'd clung to for far too long. 3 days passed. My phone stayed completely silent. No message from Mom. No check-in from Dad. No explanation from Eric. Even Danielle disappeared after that one brief apology. As if the moment I stopped being the rescuer, I was effortlessly erased from the family photo, in a way that sent chills down my spine. I didn't call back. I didn't try to make peace. I didn't send another dollar to Eric's account like I usually did. For the first time in years, I chose to walk away. Completely. Someone once told me, family isn't always about blood. Sometimes, it's the people who don't make you beg to be seen. Back then, I nodded and brushed it off. Now, I feel that sentence carved into every breath I take. I spent the rest of the holiday doing small things, cleaning my bookshelf, cooking meals for myself instead of heating up canned food because I was too busy caring for others. I journaled a few lines, something I hadn't done in years. In those messy scribbles, I finally admitted to myself, I was tired. Tired of always being strong, always sending money right on time, always suppressing my emotions to make others comfortable. Tired of carrying responsibilities no one asked me to, only to be dismissed as useless when I stopped. I don't expect them to understand. I don't need them to come back and apologize. I just want this silence to continue. It stung at first, but now it feels like a thin layer of frost over every wound. Cold, but freeing. On New Year's Eve, when the clock struck midnight, I turned on my phone one last time. Still no message. I set it aside, poured myself a glass of white wine, and raised it. Happy New Year, Claire. You made it. On New Year's Day, I started packing away the Christmas decorations. As I moved the tree out of the living room corner, I noticed the smallest gift box I'd prepared. The one for Eric. A genuine leather wallet, engraved with his name. To Eric, always, by your side. I let out a soft laugh, a laugh that felt equal parts sad and freeing. I picked up the wallet, looked at it one last time, then gently placed it in the donation bin along with the other gifts. If it wouldn't serve as a symbol of family love, then maybe it could make a stranger feel cared for. 3 weeks later, after the holidays ended and I returned to work, I still hadn't received a single message. But it didn't hurt the way it used to. I started spending more time on myself. I signed up for a morning yoga class, bought a ukulele, even though I'd never played an instrument in my life. I even called my old college roommate, the one I kept saying, "We really need to catch up soon," to for nearly 4 years. Each small step felt like putting together pieces of myself, pieces my family made me believe didn't matter. It's strange. Only when I stopped being the supporter, the sacrificer, did I start learning how to truly be me. But it didn't end there. One evening in early February, while I was going through my beginning-of-year financial summaries, my phone buzzed. A call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick it up. A man's voice came through, calm, yet unfamiliar. "Hello. I'm Thomas Reed, an attorney. I represent a client involved in financial matters concerning you and your family." I sat up straight. "An attorney? Financial matters? What did you just say?" I tried to stay composed. "I can't share much over the phone, but, Miss Claire, I think you should know. Something serious is happening." And at that moment, I knew this silence wasn't the end. I had never met an attorney before. Yet now, I was sitting outside the office of a man named Thomas Reed, palms damp with sweat. The afternoon after that call, I stepped into a small, neat room lit by soft lighting, a modern abstract painting hanging behind the desk. The man, mid-40s, sharply dressed, shook my hand with the calm demeanor of someone used to uncomfortable truths. "Thank you for coming, Claire. I know this came out of nowhere." I sat down, trying to keep my voice steady. "You said this has to do with financial matters between me and my family. What, exactly?" Thomas opened a manila folder and slid it gently toward me. "A relative of yours asked me to review the financial assistance you've provided to your younger brother, Eric." I frowned. "You mean Danielle?" He nodded. "Yes. She uncovered some information that raised concern." I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, screenshots of messages, and a summary of the money I'd sent Eric over the past 5 years. Some I remembered well. Summer camp fees, mortgage help, allergy medication for Ava. But there were others I had never even heard of. One entry read, $500 0 cents, transfer from Claire, followed by a transaction to a website, for sports betting. I looked up, heart pounding. "You're telling me Eric used the money I gave him to gamble?" Thomas didn't hesitate. "Not just once. Danielle discovered a hidden account Eric set up without telling her. She's been monitoring it quietly and now believes he used a significant portion of the support money, including yours, for personal, untraceable spending." I couldn't find words. "She's not looking to take legal action," he continued. "At least, not yet. But she felt you deserved to know, so you wouldn't be blindsided by future demands. And if Eric continues, she may use this evidence to protect herself and the children." I closed the folder, my chest both hollow and burning. In my head, Eric's words at the door echoed, "You haven't helped us at all this year." Meanwhile, he'd been betting on late-night games with that money. By the time I left the law office, the sun had dipped low. Melted snow puddled in freezing pools on the sidewalk. I pulled my phone from my pocket, thinking to call Danielle, but saw an unread message from her, sent the night before. "Claire, I know you said you wouldn't come back, but I need to say this. I'm sorry I stayed silent for so long. What Eric did was wrong, and I see that now. If you need anything, I'm here." I stood still on the sidewalk, throat tight. A short, belated apology, but not meaningless. Danielle, who used to avoid eye contact with me at every holiday gathering, was now the only one acknowledging the truth. I typed a few words, deleted them, typed again. In the end, I sent just one line. "Thank you for being brave, but this time I won't forget." It wasn't a reproach, just the truth. When someone stays silent while you're being pushed into a hole, even if they reach out later, you can't climb out like you never fell. That night, I couldn't sleep. The numbers in the folder replayed in my mind. Every transaction, every receipt of betrayal. I thought of all the gifts I had carefully picked out for Eric, the birthday notes I'd written by hand, the countless times I pushed aside my own needs to help him stay afloat. And now I was the one labeled selfish. But this time, I wasn't going back. Not anymore. Only, I knew Eric wouldn't stop here. And I knew, if he realized I was no longer under his control, he'd try to take it back, no matter the cost. And I was right. Because 2 days later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number, this time not a lawyer. It was Eric. And his voice wasn't full of contempt anymore. It was panic. I was in the middle of making dinner, my usual Saturday night treat, creamy mushroom pasta, when a loud knock shook my door. Not the polite kind from a neighbor, not the gentle thud of a delivery. This was urgent, sharp, demanding. I hesitated, then opened the door. Just as I expected, Eric stood there. Eyes bloodshot, thick winter coat slipping off one shoulder, the scent of cigarette smoke and cold snow clinging to him. "Claire, we need to talk." I folded my arms. "You're showing up now?" "You weren't answering your phone. I had to come." I blocked the entrance. "If you're here to blame me, start a scene, or ask for more money, don't bother. I don't have anything left for you." He froze for a second, then his eyes turned cold. "You're really cutting me off? After everything?" I let out a dry laugh. "After everything I did for you? Yes, and I should have done it a long time ago." He stepped forward. "Claire, you don't get it. We're in trouble. Danielle wants to separate, the kids need new clothes, school fees are due, everything's falling apart. I need you." I looked him in the eye. "No, you don't need me. You need my wallet. And I'm done playing that game. You can't do this. You're the most responsible one in the family." I raised an eyebrow. "Responsible? You think I exist to clean up your messes? I didn't come into this world to fix your life. I've worked too hard for a little peace, and I'm not giving it up again." He sneered. "What about Mom and Dad? You gonna leave them too?" Anger flared in my chest. "They chose you. They stood by while you humiliated me. They turned their backs when I stood on their doorstep with gifts. If they needed me, they would have called. But they didn't. Not once." Eric stayed silent. It wasn't guilt. It was calculation. I could see it. "You know," he said, voice dropping, "Danielle's digging through everything. She's bringing in a lawyer to uncover every account. And you've been involved in a lot. If she sues—" "Stop," I snapped, my voice sharp as ice. "If you're suggesting I'd be dragged into this for helping you over the years, let me be clear. I transferred money believing it was for your family. I didn't know you were gambling with it, or stashing it in secret accounts." His face shifted strangely. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. Maybe he realized I wasn't the gullible sister anymore, the one who'd pull out her wallet with every apology. I stepped back, still holding the door. "I won't be pulled into the mess you created." "You have a lawyer? Good. So can I. And if this ends in court, I'll tell the whole truth." He clenched his jaw. "You really want to take it that far?" I nodded. "If that's what it takes to end this, yes. It's time you learned to stand on your own instead of living off other people's kindness." He stood there for another second, then turned and walked away without a word. I shut the door as his footsteps faded. Leaning against it, I felt my hands still trembling, not from fear, but from release. It was the first time I'd said what I truly thought. No sugarcoating, No self-blame. No soft landings. I walked back to the kitchen. The mushroom cream sauce was still simmering. I turned down the heat, plated my dinner, sprinkled some shredded cheese on top, and sat at the table. A simple meal, in a small kitchen, but the beginning of a life no longer bound by fake family debt. 2 days after the confrontation with Eric, I thought things had finally quieted down. No more pounding on my door, no threatening calls, no guilt-ridden texts. The whole town seemed wrapped in February's bitter hush, as snow thickened on the rooftops, an icy wind howled through the windows. I had just finished a Zoom meeting when my phone rang. Another unknown number, an area code I didn't recognize. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick up. "Hello, this is Claire." A low, professional male voice answered. "Hi, Claire. This is Mark Dawson. I'm an attorney representing a client with connections to your family. Do you have a moment to talk?" I straightened up. "An attorney? What's going on?" "I'm sorry to catch you off guard," he said, steady and calm. "I can't discuss much over the phone, but I've been asked to review financial transactions between you and a relative, specifically your brother, Eric Spencer. If you're willing, I'd like to meet in person to explain further." A flood of possibilities ran through my mind like a fast-forward reel. Was Eric suing me? Was the family trying to reclaim money? Or worse, were they trying to frame me for some kind of legal mess? I agreed to the meeting, though suspicion weighed heavily on me. We scheduled it for the next morning at a small law office about a 30-minute drive from where I lived. Mark Dawson's office was inside a quaint red brick building, so quiet I could hear the click of my heels down the hallway. He stood to greet me. Tall, polite, the kind of man who clearly spent most of his day reviewing case files. After a few pleasantries, he opened a thick folder and slid it toward me. "I've been authorized by Eric's wife, Danielle Spencer," he said. "She uncovered some questionable financial activity and believes you deserve to know the truth." I couldn't hide my shock. "Danielle?" Mark nodded. "She doesn't want to escalate things, at least not yet. But given the amount of money involved on your end, she thought it was best to be upfront with you." I flipped open the folder. Inside were copies of bank transactions, transfers from my account to Eric's, followed by withdrawals into another account labeled ES Investments. It wasn't a family account. It had nothing to do with the kids, as I had always assumed. "Danielle discovered this secondary account a few weeks ago," Mark explained. "She grew suspicious and started tracking it. She found Eric had been investing the money in online betting platforms, spending it at upscale restaurants, and even booking hotel rooms while telling his wife he was out meeting clients." I sat frozen. A chill ran down my spine despite the room being warm. I didn't know any of this," I whispered. "Danielle doesn't think you did," Mark said, softening his tone. "She said if you had known, you never would have kept helping." I skimmed through the statements. The dates lined up with the times Eric had called me crying, saying Mason needed school fees. The car had broken down. Danielle's hours were cut. I'd believed every word, and he had lied. Through every single one. "Danielle is considering a separation," Mark said. "She wants to ensure the money you sent doesn't put her and the kids at a disadvantage during any asset division if divorce becomes inevitable." I nodded slowly. "Does she want me to do anything?" "Not at the moment," Mark replied. "She just wants you to be aware, and if Eric tries to pressure you again, you have the right to protect yourself legally. All the evidence here is legitimate and can be used if things get worse." I didn't know how long I sat there, but as I stood up, shook Mark's hand, and thanked him, one thing was painfully clear. The thing I'd been calling family had rotted long ago. I'd just been too busy pouring in money and trust to notice. I walked out of the office, winter sunlight casting long streaks across the icy sidewalk. In my hand was a folder that should never have needed to exist. I brought it home and set it on the dining table like a bomb that hadn't gone off. For years, I'd held birthday cards, medical bills, even crayon drawings from Ava and Mason with love. But nothing had ever made me feel this angry and hollow, like these papers did. I sat down and began flipping through each page, like peeling back a truth my heart wasn't ready for. But my mind demanded I face. The bank statements clearly showed transfers from my account. $600, 0 cents, $1, 25 cents, even $5, 0 cents at times. All matching moments when Eric had called with a trembling voice, saying the world was falling apart. And days later, in the same statements, were large cash withdrawals transferred into a secondary account called Spencer E. Holdings, a name I had never heard before. I kept flipping. A receipt from a luxury resort in Denver, dated during the exact time Eric claimed, "Danielle and the kids are sick. Can you help with some medicine?" There was also a charge for a Rolex watch, paid for with a card linked to that secondary account. By then, I wasn't shocked anymore. I was numb. At the very back of the folder were screenshots of messages between Eric and someone labeled G. The recipient wasn't named, but the content made my stomach drop. "Don't worry, that girl's easy to fool. Just mention the kids and she'll pull out her wallet. She thinks she's some noble big sister. She's just a credit card with feelings." I froze. That girl was me. There are no words for the moment you realize you've become the punchline to someone you've sacrificed everything for. Eric hadn't just used me. He mocked me for it. I closed the folder, my hands gripping it so tightly my knuckles turned white. What I felt now wasn't hurt or disappointment. It was deep, burning anger. For all the times I'd stayed silent. All the times I'd said, "It's okay, I can help," never asking for anything in return. Not even basic respect. I grabbed my phone and texted Danielle. "Thank you for showing me the truth, but you need to know, I won't stay out of this anymore." The message was marked as read within a minute. Danielle called immediately. Her voice was strained. "Claire, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how bad it really was. I suspected, but I didn't know he'd actually say something like that." I gently cut her off. "Danielle, just discovering it was brave. But this isn't just about the two of you anymore. This is about me, about my dignity. And I won't let it be stepped on again." "I understand," she whispered. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect the kids, even if it means leaving him." I looked out the window. The snow was still falling, but I no longer felt cold. A steely resolve had taken root. I wouldn't let Eric trap himself in a web of lies and drag others down with him. I thought of all the people who had stayed silent, who had turned their backs when I needed them. My parents, the awkward dinners, my mom's forced hugs when I pulled out my checkbook. Everything was clear now. They didn't avoid me because I wasn't good enough, but because I no longer benefited them. I wouldn't back down. I wouldn't let my kindness become someone's punchline again. And this time, I wouldn't go through it alone. I opened my laptop and started compiling a detailed ledger of every dollar I'd ever sent Eric. Dates, reasons, supporting proof. I knew I couldn't get that money back, but I could reclaim my voice. And if needed, I'd bring everything into the light. I looked at the folder on the table. Inside was the truth, painful but necessary. Truth that, once exposed, couldn't be buried again. I was in the kitchen washing my hands after prepping a batch of butter cookies, one of the few things that brought me peace lately, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. But I already knew who it was. Eric. I almost didn't answer. In fact, I'd ignored dozens of his calls and texts all week. But something told me it was time to end this, once and for all. I wiped my hands and picked up. "This is Claire." Eric's voice came through, dry and impatient. "I know you're behind this." I raised an eyebrow. "Behind what?" "Don't play dumb. Danielle froze our accounts. She drained the savings, hired a lawyer, and threatened divorce. All of it started the moment you showed up." I kept my voice even. "Oh, I didn't show up. I was invited. By your wife." He exhaled sharply, his tone sharp. She's the mother of my kids. How could you convince her to walk away from our family? I let out a cold laugh. Eric, you convinced her. I was just the last one to stop pretending. Don't confuse consequences with enemies. You lied. You used me for years. You lied to Danielle, you neglected your kids, you funneled money into places you thought no one would notice, and now that it's blowing up, you're blaming me? His voice cracked, like he was struggling to stay composed. You don't understand. Everyone expects me to be the provider, the perfect dad, the good husband. You've never known that kind of pressure. I cut him off, no longer gentle. Don't confuse responsibility with selfishness. I helped you more than once. I saved you from losing your house, going bankrupt, and letting your kids go without. And what did I get? A message calling me a talking wallet, an insult at the front door. And now, you're mad that I'm not covering for you anymore? Silence. Then his tone shifted. That familiar, smug laugh I knew too well. The one he used when he strolled past me last Christmas, saying, "Failures don't belong here." You really think you're getting away with this? Mom and Dad are still on my side. You can make things up, but you're not the only one with a voice in this family. I tightened my grip on the phone, heart calm for the first time. I was done being manipulated. His words no longer worked on me. Family doesn't mean blindness, and if they're still backing you after all this, then I'm more certain than ever that walking away was the right choice. Say whatever you want, Eric, but don't ever call me again. Claire. I cut him off, voice firm. It's over, Eric. I'm not your fixer. I'm not your emergency contact when your world crumbles, only to be ghosted once you're fed again. I'm the person you pushed out with your own hands. He said nothing. I don't owe you anything, I added slowly. And if you keep bothering me, you'll be hearing from my attorney instead. I hung up before he could respond, my hand still slightly shaking, not out of fear, but from the weight of finality. There's no easy victory when you have to break from your own blood, but some ties, the longer you hold on, the more you lose yourself. I stood still for a few minutes, then returned to the kitchen. The batch of cookies was still waiting. I adjusted the oven temperature and carefully arranged each cookie on the tray, as if it were a quiet ritual to close a chapter that had dragged on too long. I was organizing financial folders on my computer when my phone buzzed with a message from Danielle. Do you have a moment to talk? I called her back immediately. Her voice came through soft, but firmer than I'd ever heard before. Claire, I've made my decision, Danielle said. The kids and I are leaving this weekend. Eric's going to a conference in Cleveland for 3 days. I'll have time to pack and move without him interfering. I paused. Are you sure? This move, it'll change everything. I know, she exhaled. But silence protects no one. I've been quiet too long. And my kids don't deserve to grow up in a home full of tension, lies, and shouting. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. What do you need me to do? Danielle hesitated. I found a small apartment in Des Moines. The schools there are good, and it's peaceful, but the deposit and first month's rent, it's a lot. I hate to ask, but you don't have to explain anything. I cut her off. Send me the account info. I'll transfer the money today. Claire, I don't even know how to thank you. Don't, I said gently. This time, I'm helping someone who truly deserves it, and I'm not doing it out of duty. I'm doing it because I believe you're doing the right thing. Danielle was quiet for a moment. I could feel her tears through every shaky breath on the line. I've packed everything. Clothes, documents, the kids' toys, she whispered. The truck's coming tomorrow night. I haven't told anyone, not even Eric's parents. I don't want anyone trying to stop me. You're not alone, I reassured her. I'm here, anytime you need me. The call ended quietly, but I felt something shift inside me. Not sadness, but relief. After so many years weighed down by pretense and exploitation, someone was finally choosing to step out of that cycle with me. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. The sky was still dark, snow clinging to the window frames, casting a golden glow from the streetlights. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and logged into my bank account. With just a few clicks, the money was sent. It wasn't a huge amount compared to what I'd given Eric, but this time it had real meaning. That afternoon, Danielle sent me a photo. Ava and Mason sitting on a pile of moving boxes, each holding a worn-out toy, grinning ear to ear. Her caption was simple, but full of hope. Goodbye, old house. Hello, new life. I saved the photo into a folder labeled New Beginnings. It was the first time I used those words, and didn't feel hollow. That evening, while reading, my phone rang again. Eric's number. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, his voice raw with fury. She's gone. You're behind this, aren't you? Don't think you've won. I'll find a way. You destroyed my family. I deleted the message without listening further. I had no reason to keep his voice, no obligation to hear another excuse. The next morning, Danielle called. We made it safely. The kids loved the new place. I just enrolled them in the local school and, for the first time in forever, I slept through the night. I smiled. Sounds like a fresh start. I couldn't have done this without you, she whispered. No, Danielle, I said. You saved yourself. I just gave a little push. We talked for a few more minutes, ending with a promise. No matter how far apart we lived, we'd stay in touch. Not because of family ties, but because of mutual respect and real trust between two women who had learned to value themselves. I sat quietly in the living room, winter sunlight pouring through the window, warming the space. I thought of Eric, probably standing alone in that empty house, surrounded only by the lies he'd built. And I thought maybe, just maybe, Danielle's quiet departure was the loudest wake-up call Eric would ever get. Time passed faster than I expected. Just a few months after Danielle moved away, I began receiving regular messages from her. No more silent apologies or anxious updates. Now it was pictures of Ava in her new school uniform, Mason holding up his math award with pride, Danielle in a tiny kitchen, wearing an apron and smiling a smile I had never seen when she lived with Eric. She found a job at a local organic grocery store, fixed hours, a kind boss, nothing glamorous, but stable. She told me every paycheck, no matter how small, felt like reclaiming a piece of herself she'd lost during the marriage. Back then, Danielle once texted, I just lived day to day, hoping Eric wouldn't explode. Now, I wake up every morning knowing what I need to do, and it's mine. I read her words, and my heart settled. Not because I needed her gratitude, but because I knew someone had found herself again after nearly losing everything. As for Eric, he was still Eric. I didn't seek out news, but rumors trickled in. He returned to the old house, told neighbors Danielle had been manipulated, claimed I tore his family apart. My mom once left me a voicemail, blaming me for letting my brother live in solitude with no one to care for him. I listened to half of it, then deleted the rest. Because I'd learned a simple truth. Silence isn't weakness. It's freedom. I no longer flinched when I opened my wallet, no longer waited for a midnight call, no longer sat shivering on someone else's porch during Christmas just to feel like I belonged. I had stopped, and in stopping, I started to live. I began volunteering at the city library every Friday afternoon, talking to strangers, helping kids learn to read. That feeling reminded me I wasn't born just to carry burdens. I could show up, give, and still stay whole. Once a week, Danielle and I video called. No drama, no tears, just recipe swaps, stories about Ava being mad over vegetables, or Mason learning to spell longer words. One day, Danielle said something I'll never forget. Claire, I used to think I was just part of a broken family, but now I realize I can build a new one, my own way, and you're part of it. I smiled, eyes misting. Not from sadness, but from something warm. Something I thought I'd lost forever. And Eric? He kept spiraling, unemployed, chasing reckless schemes. I heard he once tried to take out a high-interest loan for some can't-miss opportunity. As for my parents, they avoided all family talk whenever I checked in on their health. I didn't resent them, but I wouldn't let myself be dragged back into blind obligation. I'm learning to accept that not everyone wants to change, and that's no longer my burden to bear. One April afternoon, while watering plants on my porch, I got a notification. A new photo from Danielle. It was a drawing by Ava. A small, red-roofed house, 2 kids playing in the yard, and a woman standing by the window, smiling, hair softly curled like clouds. At the bottom, Ava had written, "This is home now. Mommy says Aunt Claire is our sunshine." I set my phone down and stood quietly in the golden light. My heart no longer felt heavy, no longer shackled by accusations or aching for words I'd never hear from people I tried so hard to hold on to. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing for sure. I stepped out of the shadows, and for the first time in years, I feel truly alive. Claire's story is proof that sometimes the bravest thing isn't forgiveness or sacrifice, it's knowing when to stop. After years of being taken advantage of in the name of family, she reclaimed herself by walking away from toxic ties and choosing to help the right person. That path wasn't easy, but it led to a new life, one where she's respected, valued, and no longer just a talking wallet. Sometimes, freedom starts with a single, powerful word: enough. What do you think about Claire's decision? Would you have done the same in her place? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt, real-life stories about family, strength, and second chances. I stood in the foyer of the house I had just bought, the house I had spent 8 years scrimping and saving for. A beautiful home worth $965,000, located in the suburbs of Seattle, with 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and a spacious living room flooded with natural light. I had dreamed of this day for so long. The day I would finally have a place to call my own, but that dream was being threatened from the very first moment. My mother crossed her arms, her tone as if she were making an obvious decision. "Lily will take the master bedroom. You can stay in the basement. After all, you're always at work anyway." I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. "But I bought this house." I emphasized each word. "Every single dollar came from my savings." Lily, my younger sister, leaned against the stair railing, her blue eyes sparkling as she feigned indifference. "Oh, don't be so selfish, Olivia. You know I need the space to grow my beauty brand. The lighting in the master bedroom is perfect for filming videos. Don't you want to help me?" I took a deep breath. In my 31 years of life, I had become accustomed to being the one pushed aside, always sacrificing for Lily. As a child, I wore her hand-me-downs, even when they no longer fit. In high school, my parents used my college savings to fund Lily's fashion design course, a course she dropped after 3 months because it didn't align with her creative vision. I was used to my family always making excuses for Lily, justifying her failures, while I had to fend for myself. I worked multiple jobs throughout college, graduated from medical school with enormous student loans, then spent 8 grueling years as a resident, before finally securing a position as a neurosurgeon at Seattle Grace Hospital. And now, in the very house I had bought with my own hard-earned money, they were deciding who got to live where. My father sat by the large window, where the sunlight highlighted the silver strands in his hair. "You have to understand, Olivia. Lily is going through a career transition. Her beauty brand is about to take off. She just needs a little support to succeed." I tightened my grip on my bag, frustration rising in my chest. Like when she opened her art studio? Or when she trained to be a makeup artist? Or last year's yoga instructor certification? Or her handmade cosmetics business that shut down after 2 months? Lily pouted. "You always love criticizing me, but at least I have passion and don't give up. That's what matters." I didn't want to argue. I knew that if I continued, the conversation would only turn into them painting me as the cold-hearted sister who refused to help her family. My mother glanced around the house, her eyes lighting up as she mentally divided the space. The basement has a separate entrance, which is very convenient for you. You can come and go without disturbing anyone. It's perfect for your work schedule. I didn't respond. Instead, I quietly pulled out my phone and texted Rachel, my best friend and the real estate lawyer who had helped me close on the house. They're doing it again. Time to implement Plan B. She replied immediately. That fast? All right, let them keep pushing. You're fully prepared. 6 months ago, when I told Rachel I planned to buy this house for my family, she warned me. You know, Olivia, Lily is going to try and take over. If you don't have protections in place, you'll lose all control. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to think my family wouldn't take advantage of me that much. But I wasn't naive enough to leave everything unprotected. So Rachel and I drafted a legal contract. One that ensured I would have the final say in this house. A contract my family had never seen. My mother turned to me, smiling as if everything had been settled. All right, sweetheart, that's decided then. I slid my phone back into my pocket, offering a small smile. Yes, Mom, that's decided. They had no idea that in just a few weeks they would realize this was not their house to control. I had spent my entire life giving in, but this time would be different. 3 weeks later, my house had seemingly transformed into Lily's personal stage. Boxes of beauty products labeled Lily Rose cluttered the hallway. A few days ago, she even asked our parents to help her put up shimmering wallpaper in the master bedroom as a backdrop for her videos. I walked into the living room, which now looked like a makeshift studio. Ring lights pointed at the couch, tripods stood everywhere, and the coffee table was covered in bottles of serums, creams, and endless rows of lipstick samples. You don't mind, do you? Lily asked when she saw me. She was adjusting the angle of her phone, holding a compact highlighter in her hand. I have a big live stream later to launch my new product. The brand is sponsoring it, so it needs to look professional. I crossed my arms, surveying the scene. So that means you've started earning money from your brand? Lily blinked, momentarily flustered. Not exactly, but I have so much potential. If this live stream goes well, I might get a contract with them. My father, who was leisurely sitting in his chair reading the newspaper, chimed in. Sweetheart, you don't always have to be so serious. Your sister is trying. Can't you support her just a little? I let out a dry laugh. Oh, of course. Just like how the family has supported me all these years. My father pretended not to hear me. Day by day, Lily expanded her occupation of the house. She turned the living room into her filming space, the master bedroom into a product storage room, and the dining area into a strategy meeting space for her social media content creator friends. They came to my house constantly, discussing new trends, live streaming for hours, and frequently leaving a mess behind. The breaking point was one weekend night when I came home after a long surgery and found over 20 strangers gathered in my living room. Lily, dressed in an elegant evening gown, stood in the center of the room with a wine glass in hand. Oh, you're home? She beamed. I organized a small networking event for the content creator community. We have to expand the brand, right? I scanned the room. Guests were laughing, taking selfies, and strolling around with their wine glasses. A group was lounging on my favorite white sofa, snacking while live streaming. On the dining table, there were countless bottles of expensive wine, the kind I had never purchased. Lily, I said slowly, this is my house. And did you ask me before organizing this event? Lily let out a nervous chuckle. Didn't you always say a home is meant to be enjoyed? I just wanted to create a more creative space. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. A transaction of nearly $650 appeared, paid from my card to an event service company. I took a deep breath, forcing down my anger. Enjoy your night, I said, then walked straight to my office. But as I closed the door behind me, I knew that Plan B had to be executed immediately. The next morning, I sat in Rachel's office, exhaustion and frustration weighing on me. This escalated faster than I expected, I said, shaking my head. I had hoped they would at least have some self-respect. Rachel narrowed her eyes at me. Did you really think that? I sighed. All right, no. But at least I wanted to give them a chance. Rachel pulled a stack of documents toward her. Then it's time for the next step. Do you remember the clause we added to the contract? I nodded. The property ownership agreement I signed before buying this house clearly stated that anyone living here for more than 30 days must sign a lease and contribute financially. Additionally, any commercial activities using the space must have my approval. If violated, the owner had the right to remove the occupant from the premises. Lily had no idea about that. I looked at Rachel, my voice firm. Do it. Rachel nodded, picking up her pen and signing a few documents. We'll send the official notice by the end of this week. When I got home, Lily was filming a video in the living room. The camera was pointed directly at me as I walked in. And this is my sister, Dr. Olivia Lawrence, Lily said enthusiastically. She's my daily inspiration. Do you want to say hi to my audience, sis? I gave a small smile. Of course. I looked straight into the camera. I just want to say that some people are about to learn a very important lesson about homeownership. Lily laughed loudly, oblivious to the meaning behind my words. But in just a few days, she would understand. I sat down on the sofa in the living room, placing a stack of documents on the glass table in front of me. Across from me, my parents and Lily sat in the armchairs, their expressions puzzled. They still hadn't realized that tonight's family meeting was not a casual conversation. Rachel entered, closing the door behind her. She adjusted her gray blazer, placed her briefcase on the table, and took a seat. Good evening, everyone, Rachel began, her tone calm yet firm. I'm Rachel Carter, a real estate attorney. Olivia has asked me to be here to clarify some matters regarding the ownership and management of this property. My father frowned. Why do we need a lawyer for this? This is Olivia's house. But it's a family home. We're not strangers. Rachel gave a polite but pointed smile. Legally speaking, this is not a family home. This property is under the sole ownership of Olivia Lawrence. And today, we will be discussing the residency terms for this house. I opened the stack of documents and flipped to the first page. As you all know, I said, keeping my voice calm, I bought this house entirely with my own money. And before purchasing it, Rachel and I drafted a contract that clearly outlines who can live here and under what conditions. Lily crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair, her tone dripping with sarcasm. You're acting like we're just tenants. Rachel didn't give her a chance to argue further. She slid a contract toward them. According to the stated terms, any adult residing here for more than 30 days must sign a lease agreement. The rent is calculated based on the room's size and amenities used. I looked at Lily, then at my parents. That means if you want to continue living here, you have to pay rent and contribute to household expenses like electricity, water, and internet. Silence filled the room. My father was the first to break it. You're joking, right? No, Dad, I replied. I'm very serious. My mother shook her head, disbelief in her voice. Olivia, you're a neurosurgeon. You have more than enough money to support your family. Do you really want to nickel and dime your own parents? I took a deep breath, keeping my composure. I'm not nickel and diming anyone. I just want everyone to take responsibility. I can't keep covering everything while I'm the only one with a stable income in this house. Lily shot up from her chair. This is ridiculous. I'm a content creator. I'm building my brand. You can't expect me to pay rent like some office worker. Rachel leaned back, tapping her pen against the stack of documents. By law, if you don't have a legal source of income or a verified financial account, you cannot sign a lease agreement. If you don't sign, you have 30 days to vacate. Lily's mouth fell open, unable to believe what she was hearing. You're kicking me out of the house? I looked her straight in the eye. If you don't pay rent, then yes. The argument lasted over an hour. My parents took turns blaming, pleading, and eventually guilt-tripping. Lily cried, trying every possible way to make me feel bad, but this time, I did not give in. When they realized I wasn't changing my mind, my mother switched to bargaining. "We can compromise, Olivia. Maybe Lily doesn't have to pay rent right now, but she can help around the house to make up for it." I shook my head. Lily has turned this house into her personal space, thrown parties, and used my credit card without permission. And now you think she can make up for it by doing chores? Lily clenched her fists. "You're going to regret this." I simply stood up, picking up the documents from the table. "You all have 30 days. If not, I will proceed with legal action." My father slammed his fist on the table. "We're family, Olivia. You can't do this to your own family." I looked him straight in the eye. Family is not an excuse to take advantage of someone. 30 days later, my house was finally mine again. Lily and my parents had packed their bags. After weeks of trying to hold on, they realized I wasn't bluffing. They moved into a smaller apartment in the city. Not too far, but far enough for me to have the distance I needed. Without a luxury backdrop for her videos, Lily had no choice but to get a real job. I heard she was now working as a receptionist at a gym. The first job in her life that she had kept for more than a month. My parents no longer sent me guilt-tripping messages. They didn't acknowledge their mistakes, but at least they had stopped trying to manipulate me. That first night in my quiet home, I sat with a cup of hot tea. No more fake laughter from strangers, no more endless live streams in the middle of the night. Just me, and the peace I had fought to reclaim. 6 months later, I received a letter from Lily. "Olivia, I've tried to write this letter so many times, but only now do I truly know what I need to say. I always thought you were heartless, but now I realize you were the only one who set the boundaries I needed. You helped me by refusing to help me unconditionally. I had to learn how to live without a safety net, and while it was harder than I ever imagined, I now understand it was necessary. Thank you for being stronger than me. Thank you for not giving in. I hope one day you can forgive me. Lily." I read the letter over and over, feeling a sense of relief for the first time. The next day, I sent a simple text. "Let's grab coffee. We have a lot to talk about." I didn't know if my relationship with Lily could ever go back to what it was. But at least we had a fresh start, not from my unconditional sacrifice, but from her genuine growth. And to me, that was a worthwhile change. The Seattle sky was gray as I sat by the window, holding a warm cup of coffee. The house was quieter than ever. No more rowdy guests, no more late-night live streams, no more absurd charges on my credit card. The past 6 months had been the first time in my life I truly lived for myself. I walked around the house, feeling the clear transformation in every space. The living room was no longer overrun with tripods and fake backdrops. Instead, it held a cozy sofa and a bookshelf filled with my favorite novels. The kitchen was spotless, no longer bearing the aftermath of extravagant parties. The master bedroom was finally mine, just as it should have been from the start, and I felt no regret. Letting Lily and my parents leave wasn't just about reclaiming my space. It was a crucial lesson for all of us. I was no longer my family's personal ATM. I was no longer sacrificing my peace for relationships built on dependency and entitlement. I drove to the cafe where I had arranged to meet Lily. She had arrived early, sitting in a corner. There was no phone propped up for live streaming this time. The expensive silk dress was gone, replaced by a simple blouse. Her perfectly curled hair was now neatly tied back. When I sat down, she looked up and smiled. Not the performance smile for the camera, but a genuine one. "You still drink unsweetened lattes, right?" She pushed a cup toward me. I raised an eyebrow. "You remember?" "I remember a lot of things," Lily sighed. "I remember how much you tried to help me. I just never acknowledged it." I stayed silent, letting her continue. "You were right," she murmured, staring into her coffee. "I spent my whole life thinking someone would always be there to support me. When you weren't, I had to find my own way. And honestly, it wasn't easy at all." I looked at Lily and saw the change in her eyes. The girl who once believed she could always rely on others had now learned what it meant to be independent. "Do you regret it?" Lily asked after a moment of silence. Kicking me and mom and dad out? I shook my head. No. If I hadn't done it, you wouldn't have had the chance to truly grow. Lily let out a soft laugh. Maybe. I resented you so much, but now I'm grateful. I took a sip of my coffee, feeling a sense of relief. Lily was no longer the dependent little sister I once knew. She was still learning to stand on her own, but more importantly, she had started taking real steps forward. Can we start over? Lily asked, her eyes more sincere than ever. This time, as real sisters? I smiled. I'd really like that. Outside the window, the Seattle rain fell lightly, washing away the remnants of the past. I knew things would never go back to the way they were, but maybe, this time, they would be better. Olivia's story isn't just about a house or family conflicts. It's a lesson in boundaries, independence, and self-respect. In life, sometimes the best way to love someone isn't by constantly helping them, but by letting them take responsibility for their own life. Saying no isn't always easy, especially when it comes to family, but sometimes it's necessary for both sides to grow. Olivia didn't just reclaim her space, she helped her sister find her own path to self-sufficiency. What do you think about Olivia's decision? Was she too harsh, or was it necessary for her family to truly grow? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to follow the channel for more stories about life and family.